plagues don't try to kill you in the same way that you don't want to burn down your house because they live inside you. They just want to grow. So in the same way that you don't want to set fire to your own home, diseases don't actually want to kill you. The reason that diseases get so deadly is because they're designed to be in animals that are disgusting, like a cow or a pig. But eventually, in a 1 in a million chance that they eventually will hop into a human and actually they'll find a way to survive and thrive. Now, it's a 1 in a million chance because it's very unlikely that a pig disease is going to transfer into a human disease. But you can scale those odds up by stacking a bunch of people in filthy conditions and packing them full of animals as well. Like the Europeans did when they built all their cities, like London and all their major metropolises. There was just pigs and shit running around everywhere. Which created hotspots for diseases to jump from animals to humans. Now, that's because we had domesticated animals in North America, in Eurasia, animals that were actually able to be domesticated. There are no naturally domesticatable animals in the American continent. Like, have you tried to domesticate a buffalo before? It's a fucking tank on hooves. Like, there's no way you're able to control what a buffalo does. It will fucking kill you if you try to put a noose on it. And so the Native Americans found ways to build cities that didn't revolve around animals as much. Like they had llamas and whatnot, but they didn't have the same path conditions that the Europeans had. Now, when the Europeans made contact, their immune systems had developed these systems for defeating the viruses, or at least surviving them long enough to reproduce, right? But the Native Americans did not have those same defenses. But they did have a thriving cultural system and a thriving society that was very connected. So when they were passing along messages, the sick messengers were it was very easy for the messengers to spread diseases to one another because they didn't have the natural defenses for it. And so plague just like washed through all of North America and fucking devastated communities. Like if you look at the art from Native Americans, it is like one guy trying to keep his entire family alive and they're all just fucking dying around him. It's fucking horrifying. And if we ever saw that level of devastation, we would consider it the fucking end of the world. And they did. And so imagine the end of the world happening to you, and then the fucking white man shows up, and like, how are you supposed to survive that? You're not. You're gonna fucking die immediately because all of your entire efforts have gone into staying alive, let alone like producing food and sustaining yourself and your family and growing. All of your energy has gone to just please don't fucking die in the next 30 minutes because the plagues had just fucking annihilated. I'm gonna pull this guy out of here. Oh, thank you, sir. Exactly. So they all weren't united, and on top of that, they were also very connected, which set up the systems for plagues to spread very quickly across the plains, because they were a very complex society. But once you get down into the point where everyone's trying to survive and like desperately trying to do everything they can to hold off death, the idea of banding together falls to the wayside to the idea of I need to keep me and mine alive. So there's less incentive for people to band together when, hey, I'm doing just fine on my own right now. Keep your fucking plague on the other side, right? Please do not bring your plague to me. Stay over there. Which leaves people on their own when they're trying to like, hey, fend off the white man. Listen, you fend off the white man. I'm currently trying to survive the end of the world. You're just fucked. There is no winning card. As soon as those diseases showed up on their doorstep, there was no winning move for them to play, because in order for them to defeat those diseases, they would need to be exposed to diseases for literally thousands of years to develop the same amount of defenses that the Europeans had. So even if they had time, it just wouldn't have been enough. And there was also so much pressure from the Europeans coming in to like, hey, colonize the New World, that they did not give a single flying fuck about helping the Native Americans as they were struggling with all these plagues. It was, if anything, was considered a blessing from God that, all these people, all these complex societies seem to be collapsing around us. I wonder what's causing that. Well, it must be the will of God. Yeah, it was that was a horrifying podcast to create, because what I did is I made that podcast while I was in the middle of obviously when the pandemic was just starting up. We're winning this game. So this has been the pandemic hour with how pandemics have shaped the world before us, and they're probably going to again. And so I followed it up by looking at, well, that was the most unfortunate. So after that series, we went and we looked at, excuse me, what's her name? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking on her name right now. Famous nurse, Florence Nightingale. We did an examination of Florence Nightingale, and how the changes that she made were beneficial for nursing and helping combat those very, very viral plagues. So we talked, we just mentioned how plagues are very transmittable diseases, thrive in conditions that are completely shit, right? And so what they've found is that these military hospitals in the Crimean War were complete cesspools, and they didn't understand why people weren't getting better. And it was because there was shit running through the showers, literally shit running through the showers anytime someone was trying to get clean, and they just didn't know. They didn't understand why diseases were spreading so quickly and why people were dying so often in those field hospitals. And so what she did is she went around and she mapped deaths. So they didn't understand why people were dying, but what she did is she mapped deaths by hospital and then compared them to the conditions of the hospital. And then they slowly discovered that, hey, it looks like the houses that are cleaner are having a lower death rate, right? Which obviously makes so much sense in the world to us, right? We understand, the modern day understands why you don't want to have a fucking disgusting hospital. But to them in the past, they just didn't know how it worked. If you told people, hey, diseases are actually microscopic little bacteria that live in your body and thrive in messy conditions, they would call you a fucking heretic. No, it is the wrath of God come to punish the sinner, right? Because they just didn't know how it worked. And you can blame me for walking in that fire, but you can't blame them for the ignorance of just not understanding how something works. In the same way that if an alien came down to us and was you don't know that a fucking flux capacitor runs on 2 bits of nitrogen and hydrogen? What are you, fucking dumb? Well, yeah, we're fucking dumb. We haven't figured out how it works yet. That's essentially what they were doing with hospitals. Now, unfortunately, back in those times, if you were a woman, fucking good luck. The fact that nurses were women was a sign that it was a low-paying position, because no one respected nurses at that time. It was considered a job for prostitutes. Literally, nurses were considered to be just about the same as prostitutes, because they hung out with the sick and the dejected and the dying, and it was considered one of the lowest jobs on planet Earth. And so Florence Nightingale, a nurse, actually started off as a very well-respected woman. She was very educated. Her father was very dedicated to making sure that she got the education that, frankly, not a lot of women received at the time, because they were considered second class, right? But she was still, she was so dedicated to I want to be a nurse. I want to be a nurse. I want to help people. I want to help people. That her entire family was are you sure you want to do this? You're a very, very educated woman. You can't just marry rich and be a very, very popular housewife. Come on now. Don't you know your place? And even for a family as progressive as hers was, they educated her. That's a highly progressive thing for a, oh, there's a person down here. That's a highly progressive thing for any family to do at the time. They were still nah, you should not be a nurse. But she was nah, fuck you, I'm gonna do it anyways. And nah, fuck you, I'm gonna do it anyways is the story of her fucking life. She's what are you, fucking, we can't send women to war in Crimea, are you crazy? Nah, fuck you, I'm gonna do it anyways. Take Martin Luther King religious because he walked through the summer store and said, "Dear God, don't strike me with lightning. I become religious, dedicate my life to you. He didn't strike with lightning, dedicate my life to God." See, and that's, it worked out. Became one of the most influential people of all time. Unfortunately, though, for all the math and all the finding that she did, it took it took a man to look at her findings and be oh yeah, she's right, for them to actually pay attention to her. Because even though they had all the data and the information was right in front of her, or right in front of the popular, hold up, sir, that's not right. All the information was sitting right in front of the smartest minds in the world at the time. The fact that the information came from a woman was so fucking mind-blowing to them that they discounted it, and it took a male doctor to look at the information and be oh no, she's right, for them to actually care to give a shit and look at it, which is really sad. because imagine all the people that could have been alive if it weren't for her. But like she single-handedly, so after she made this massive discovery, she single-handedly transformed the imagery of nurses. Like the fact that we had an entire season where like nurses are heroes would be mind-blowing to anyone that grew up around nurses almost like 150 years ago. They'd be like, are you kidding me? Like, prostitutes aren't heroes. Are you fucking nuts? Prostitutes are not heroes. That's what the equivalent would be if they heard us saying that nurses are heroes, because that's the same level that they put them on at the time. Oh, excuse me, sir. I have literally no idea what I've done this entire match. Hold up. I just kind of walked around and talked about history, which I'm sure is fucking thrilling. But it's stuff like that that gets me really excited about history. That makes me want to come back and do more. Oh, I wasn't even paying attention. Seth Washio 5, thanks for the fat follow, dude. I probably should have dumped that ball. I was too busy nerding out about Florence Nightingale. I didn't even mean to go down that rabbit hole when I was first writing that story. So that series came out of the charge of the Light Brigade, you know, half a league onward into the Valley of Death, Road to 600. Like, how do you convince 600 people to ride to their deaths? Because like they knew, there's not the reason why theirs was to do or die, right? Like they knew that charging this line of cannons was fucking suicide. They 10,000% do. They're not idiots. But for some reason, the cultural carrots and sticks that encourage them to go ride to their deaths were in place so that they did not give a fuck. They were going to go out there and do their duty. And there was something just awe-inspiring and horrifying about the cultural carrots and sticks that can con 600 people to ride to their deaths for no good reason. I don't know if you could make me do that. I honestly don't. I don't understand how you can make someone do that.